Good evening, everybody, and welcome to another virtual Northshire Presents. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Rachel Person. I'm the event manager for Northshire Bookstore in Saratoga Springs, New York. Here, as I so often am these days, with my good friend and colleague, David Wood, event manager for Northshire Bookstore in Manchester Center, Vermont. Before we get started, a couple of very quick notes. First of all, as you're coming in, you probably noticed that this evening's presentation is being recorded for future broadcast on our YouTube channel. However, fear not, we have the settings arranged so that only those of us who are unmuted and speaking will be recorded. So you can have your video on and you will not be part of that YouTube video. In light of that, please use the chat box at any time throughout the evening. You can post questions that you have there and David and I will save those up and we will pose them for you when we get to the audience question and answer session at the end of the event. And then last of all, before I turn things over to David to introduce our guest this evening, a word of thanks. Especially at this time of year, we at Northshire are deeply appreciative of the incredible loyalty and support of our customers like you. Independent bookselling is a strange and hard business, and the last 2 years have not been easy, but we continue to exist as a business that you can shop at thanks to your incredible patronage and support, and we are all very, very appreciative of that. So thank you for being here tonight and for continuing to support your favorite local indie. And now, without further ado, David, why don't you introduce our guests?
Thank you so much, Rachel. It's my great pleasure to finally get to introduce Carla Gambescia for her book, La Dolce Vita University, an unconventional guide to Italian culture, A to Z. Carla conceived and co-led the Giro del Gelato bicycle tour, winner of the Outside magazine's Best Trip in Western Europe. In 2008, Carla founded Via Vanti Restaurant and Gelateria in Mount Kisco, New York. Which was quickly named Best Gelato Shop in New York. La Dolce Vita University, her new book, is the natural outgrowth of Carla's work and play in both the restaurant and boutique travel industries, as well as a lifelong love affair with the land of her ancestors. About the book, Denise Scott Brown said, imagine it as a dessert course filled with dark chocolates, filled with exotic fruits and nuts, packed with knowledge and love of history and art, wisdom and wit, Italian, American, global. Carla wears her scholarship lightly. You never get over full, but what a feast. And we are lucky, very, very lucky to be joined tonight for this virtual event by Susan Van Allen, who has written about Italian travel for National Public Radio, National Geographic Traveler, Tastes of Italia, and in 4 books, most recently, 100 Places in Italy Every Woman Should Go. Please join me in welcoming to Northshire Bookstore, Susan Van Allen and Carla Gambescia. Why don't you all get started?
Oh, well, grazie mille. Buonasera, everyone, for joining in. I just always get such a great feeling about being around people who love Italy like I love Italy. And it's been so great to connect with my paesana, Carla, to celebrate her La Dolce Vita University, which is so delightful to read because you can just open up to any page. Here I go, and I am on John Duya. Oh, that's fabulous. In the G's. It's about chocolate. I mean, chocolates. So thank you so much for having me here to interview Carla. And we would love to know where was your love for Italy born?
So it was born in my neighborhood and born in South Philly. And so I grew up in a very Italian neighborhood, and we were sort of part of the neighborhood, but like a bit apart. My parents were a little unusual. They were cultural enthusiasts, but like not about brajol. I mean, it was much more about art and music. And my mother was really passionate about art. My father, he was a little broader. He loved Dante. I mean, he went everywhere with a copy of the Commedia. And growing up on Sundays after church, my father would give me Italian lessons, and it would begin with words and pronunciation and so on. But it always kind of devolved because my father was an amazing storyteller, and he would tell me about great geniuses, and he would tell me, but he would make it like relevant to someone who was like 7 or 6. Dante and Beatrice, this great love affair, and Galileo and his experiments with the balls at the Tower of Pisa, and those kinds of things. Oh, and I loved Vivaldi because he taught little orphan girls how to play violins. So these stories really completely just captured my imagination. And my parents took me to Italy when I was 8. My father, in prepping me, said, you are descended from the Romans and the Medici. So I have really no idea what this is, but it's like, yeah, that sounds really, really great. And then my mother just like would be very happy to spend time in art galleries, and it's a little boring when you're young. You'd rather be, like I want to go to the beach. But we would play this game in the galleries where I'd have to pick a picture, find a detail that really captured my imagination. And Susan and I talked a little bit, and I actually did a search, and I found two paintings that really mean a lot to me. Whenever I go to Italy, I have to see them from this trip when I was 8 years old. So I'm going to show you these. And let me just quickly go here. Okay, so this is in Venice, and this is Tobias and the angel. And of course, what I loved about this was the little dog, and Tobias with this beautiful angel. And so whenever I'm in Venice and I have to go to the Accademia and I have to see Tobias and the angel, and this is a really beautiful painting by Rosso de Fiorentino in the Uffizi, and this little angel playing a lute. So yeah, so
That's
I really
so
love it.
amazing that you were turned onto it that way. And what is your ancestry? Where were your people from?
So yeah, so this is funny. We're really from we're like dirt poor from the South. My father's family is from Abruzzo, and my mother's
And where in
family's,
Abruzzo?
pardon me?
Where in
So,
Abruzzo?
from Chieti. And
Oh.
so, yeah. And then my mother's family's from Basilicata, up in the mountains in the Piccolo Dolomiti. I have really no idea how they got to the boat. I've been there, this town, Acciatura, it's up in the mountains, and just stunningly beautiful mountainscape.
Yeah. It's interesting because so many of us Italian Americans, and there's a big Italian American population in Philadelphia, I know, that retains a lot.
Abruzzese, a lot of
Yes, they have that great restaurant there. What is the name in Philadelphia?
Grand Cafe, L'Aquila.
Right,
On
right,
Chestnut Street.
right. And so, so many of us came through it through the food, but you came through it, it sounds more like through the art. Do you remember any specific words you learned when you were little?
Well, I liked pronouncing things, and the IEs, like they'd say, oh, she has such a great ear. So like something like condottieri, anything with the IE, I really like that. And I'm a good R triller. And actually, if you don't like start trilling your R's when you're little, it's a little hard.
I know, no, that's how we would have fun. Even though my name doesn't have an O in the back, on the Italian on the maternal side.
Right.
So my sisters and I would have a lot of fun waving our hands around and just going like,
Oh,
and that was how
yeah.
we spoke Italian, because we weren't taught it like you
Right.
were when we were little. Anyway, so you move on from growing up with that to having the restaurant, visiting, I'm sure, many times. But what was the real inspiration? What did you want? Why did you want to write this book for readers?
So it's kind of an interesting journey to the book. And like, really, if someone had told me like 30 years ago that I'd own a restaurant that was reviewed by the New York Times, or I'd write a book, I mean, I would have just like laughed at the complete improbability of that, because it just, but life has this way where the improbable becomes the inevitable. And the book was born of my restaurant, which was born of a bike trip, okay, which I took in the 90s. And, I grew up a lot of Italy, but I left it. I just completely left it. I was always loved to travel. I was really interested in like traveling, like as more, if I could get a vaccination, the more remote it was, the more interesting. But I had this kind of renaissance in the 90s and where I really rediscovered Italy. So I was on this bike trip with the company Ciclismo Classico. They had just really begun their operation, and it was this trip to Sicily. And they didn't have their act together. They're a great company now, a fantastic company. But on this particular trip, it was, really kind of just, it wasn't together. They were new. But I had the most amazing time because there was eagerness, and it was just the place was beautiful. Everyone tried so hard, and it just completely reignited my interest and passion for all things Italian. And after that trip, it was a transformative experience for me, in that I came home and I'm like, I'm going to open a restaurant. It's going to have a gelato case. I'm going to celebrate Italy. It was like a crazy idea. And it actually took 10 years to come to fruition, but it was born of that trip because I wanted people to come into my restaurant and feel like they were stepping into Italy. And, the restaurant had a great look. And the gelato case, it turns out, I make gelato. I was part of a gelato company called Ciao Bella Gelato. And I was
And
like
writing
flavor
flavor
director.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's how the bike trip came out of all of that, the Giro di Gelato, which was about like ride your bike, become a gelato expert. It's like, oh, take a bike trip or take a trip and like learn to become a wine expert. That's a high bar. Okay. You don't think you're going to be able to do that. But to be a gelato expert, everyone thinks they can do that. Yeah. So the book really, came out of that, and the restaurant, and actually I really wanted to share my passion for Italy and Italian culture. And with the restaurant, it was this idea, food is a portal to telling stories and turn people on to Italy and so on. But I have to say, it's very hard to run a restaurant, and it's a lot easier to write a book about Italy if you want to engage people, much more efficient than the restaurant. But that was 10 years of my life, and it was a pretty interesting experience all around, I have to say. So, yeah.
Well, what about, I asked you, what inspired you then to write this
Okay.
this way?
So
Yeah.
the book itself, with the restaurant, I had events every month, and I began to call the events La Dolce Vita University, where we would do something like, it would be a fig dinner, and all courses of the meal would have something to do with figs, or we'd celebrate a region, or we do wine and chocolate pairings, because actually people don't realize this, but there are like 3 chocolate cities in Italy, Torino, Perugia, Modica in Sicily. But we would do these events. And so I was always looking for events that would really engage people, that had cultural backstories. And then I had little cards that I had on the table, like little souvenirs. They were La Dolce Vita University cards that had fun facts, vocabulary words, and people would collect these things. They were like little tarot cards. And so when I closed the restaurant, which is kind of a complicated story, 10 years out, that I just decided to write the book, because I just had amassed these things and really discovered people loved these little nuggets, these little fun facts. So that's really how it was born, really born of the restaurant.
Put them together, A to Z. Great,
Yeah.
great. So, and then when you finished it, when you had the galley, did you feel like you came to some kind of insight about a new insight about Italian culture, like while writing it, or?
Well, what's interesting? So I had an insight that in some ways sparked the book from the restaurant, which is one of the things I learned in the restaurant. I would say to people that, I'd say, you have an inner Italian. And everyone, no one ever like was like, ooh, that's strange. What does that mean? What do you mean by that? Everyone was just like, oh, yes, of course I do. Absolutely. And people seem to understand this idea. And there's something really universal about the Italian spirit. It's really joyful. It's the part of all of us that, falls in love most easily, that's most joyful, spontaneous, wants to kind of be just your expressive best self. And so that was an interesting thought. And the way the book's arranged, it's alphabetical. So there's, it begins, A is for Arlecchino, who is a clown, and he's, this universal symbol of fun and frivolity, and he's engagingly transgressive. We just love him. And then the last essay in the book happens to be about something called the Zani. And the Zani in Commedia dell'arte in Venice it's the collective word for the clowns. And our word zany comes from the Zani. And so that was part of it. But, when I wrote the book, it wasn't like to have some kind of manifesto. It was more, I want to share these nuggets, little special things. I didn't write an essay. The book has now over like 250 of these little mini essays. I just wanted to share particular facts that I found fascinating. And I really challenged myself not to write anything unless I personally learned something that surprised me, that was unexpected, that I wanted that level of surprise. So I was looking for nuggets. And if you think about like a mosaic, it was just little tesserae. But when I finished writing the book and I kind of stepped back from it and said like, gee, what is going on here? I mean, it was like, there was almost like this pattern recognition. And I realized that, first of all, Italy's tiny little country. It's really small. It's less than 0.1% of the planet's landmass. And yet it's had this incredible influence and impact on, Western civilization. No other country's been like that. You have the Romans, you have the Renaissance, and then today it's kind of like a lifestyle superpower. So how does this one little country kind of have three golden ages? And how do the Italians keep like reinventing themselves? So I began to think that there was such a thing as this kind of cultural DNA that makes, something in just the nature of Italy and Italians so resilient and so able to pivot and just, really adapt to change and be joyful about it. And I think part of that is why people love Italy so much. It's just that spirit of, inclusion and
joy. And I mean, we were both there recently, actually. We dared to go or experiment.
Yes.
And I found that, the first place I landed was Venice. And I walked into a mask shop and she pointed to masks that were used during the plague, the
nose, plague doctor.
Yeah, I mean, they're talking about centuries ago. And she said, we will. She said, we will get through it. And, my gosh, they're going through ups and downs. But I do encourage people that are thinking about going, watch the reports, proceed with caution, but you will be happily surprised at what we can find there, what Carla is saying, what she was celebrating in this book about the incredible resilience, the rich history. And you write a lot about the artworks, which is where your heart in it all began. So I'd love you to tell me. I told you I was going to ask this. You're going to be ready with some images.
So I do. I have pictures.
Yeah, tell me three that you really
Okay,
love.
so I'm going to show you three. So let's go back here. Okay, so the first is I'm going to move from oldest. So
where you're going.
Oh, you know where I'm going. So this is Palazzo Massimo. So of course, the best archaeological museum ever is in Napoli, but in Rome, no one goes here. So you go into this museum and there's never anyone there. And so I didn't know too much about this museum when I first went in there. And, the usual suspects, there's statues and mosaics, and it's
But
like looking
look at
good.
the
They have
top right
coins.
corner is incredible. Yeah.
Isn't that a beautiful
Yeah.
mosaic? Yeah. And then they
Yeah,
have these
oh, I'm
amazing,
looking. Go ahead.
the coins are cool too. And they just, it's great. So on the second floor, I like wander into this room and I'm like, what is this? I have never seen anything like this. And these beautiful trees. And it says like Livia's dining room. And first of all, I'm like, who's Livia? And so Livia, of course, was the wife of the first emperor, Augustus. But this was her, they took the frescoes off of their dining room, which was actually subterranean, like in a cave. It was like the summer dining room. So it was very hot in Rome, and the dining room was underground, kind of in a cave, and they were able to preserve the frescoes, but you just see these incredible birds and trees, and you just feel as soon as you walk in here, this is to me like the most sublime of Roman antiquities, and it's like the least visited.
Yeah,
And
it's true. And it's very near the train station. If you dash over. And as you said, no reservation necessary. Walk in, it's air conditioned. If you're there in the summer, go by yourself.
Oh, I know, it's so good.
The Palazzo Massimo.
So, check that out. I look at that pomegranate. These birds are just so incredible. And, you'll sit in this room, there's nobody in there. You can take, I took these pictures, you just take these pictures, and they're just amazing. So I love that. And then this is from the Medici. This is their home in Florence. And this was something I saw when I was young. This is the chapel of the Magi, and I love the horses. And this was not Cosimo de' Medici. This was his son, Piero, and that was painted by Benozzo Gozzoli, who was a goldsmith, and these details are just extraordinary.
Wait, now we're in Florence, and we are in. Can you say it again?
The Medici Riccardi palazzo. So this would have been where the Medici lived.
Right, and it's located in the historic center of Florence.
Now, this also doesn't get very visited either, and it's this tiny little private chapel. And they had to get permission because they said mass in this chapel every day. But at the time, like you couldn't, as a private person, be able to say mass in your house. So you needed special permission from the Pope. And so this is the procession of the Magi. And then this is another Magi. So this is Gaspar, Balthazar, and Molokar. So I love that, and again, I'm little, I love the horses, but, to me, it's just like this beautiful tapestry, the richness of the colors and the use of gold, the gold leaf. It's just really magical, but you're in this tiny little room. They let you in for 5 minutes. And
so you have to reserve before to get into this one?
Well, not previously. You'd go into the palace, and then you'd like wait in line for it. So I don't know, the last time I was there was 2019.
So are you talking about the Palazzo Vecchio?
No, I'm talking about the Medici Riccardi or palace. So this would have been where Cosimo lived. And so back here, that famous, like the David with Puss in Boots, the Donatello, that would have stood in the palazzo. So when you come in, you're here, and then you just like wait in a line to go upstairs to go in to see this very small room, but it just unfurls around you. It's magnificent. Wow. And then the third thing I want to show is in Capalbio, which is the tarot garden. And this was created by Nikki de San Pal. She was French, and the Agnellis gave her land And so this is in the Maremma in the south of Tuscany. It's really not that far from Rome. And she created these amazing statues. And they're all the tarot figures. And then this is the great woman. She actually lived in there so one of her bedrooms was in one breast, and like
there was a kitchen with a refrigerator where she got her milk out of the other one. Yeah.
You go in, and then this is like, here's the sun, here's another. And so this is another thing, like no Americans go here. Okay.
No, definitely you need a car to get there. And
you do.
Yeah, it's not crowded. I was there on a school trip day, Italian school trip. And what was funny is they were elementary school boys, and they were running like up to the statue that looked like that and just snuggling it.
They're so like Italian boys, right?
So fun. But I didn't have such a beautiful sunny day. That is a very, very beautiful part of Tuscany near Grosseto, I guess would be the closest.
And then
I
also
drove there,
and then also, I mean, if you go to Porto Ercole,
right.
Pelicana, that crazy good hotel, and yes, and it's not that far from Orvieto. And there's Potidiano,
right? Right. No, it's definitely this is a great day trip. There's a town nearby that's called Capalbio that's famous for steak, right?
Yeah.
Really good bistecca. And it's also horse country. You could see beautiful, or if you want to go horse riding. So it's great to talk about Tuscany and places that aren't just overrun with tourists. And this is such a fantastic triumph of a woman artist. It was her dream project, and it's so kind of 1970s,
Yeah, right. Yeah.
I just think it's so great.
Well, she was inspired by Gaudi and Park Güell. But it also really speaks also to how, Italy inspires art and these beautiful, I don't know, it's just, I don't know, to me, it's a very special place. It's really unexpected. If you tire of Madonnas, it's really, it's really great to have this experience.
On the tarot deck, and it really is just, very nurturing to everybody, and really to artists. I mean, she was actually French. She was a model for French Vogue. I mean,
right.
Nikki Saint-Paul, she was just gorgeous and a wild kind of performance artist. That this was her big dream project that came to be. So, and in these COVID times, it's great to have places to go that are outdoors. And this is a great one for kids. The whole family will definitely enjoy it. And then speaking of outside, I think of you and the way you talked about your start with Italy was going on a bike trip, and I have loved bike trips in Italy. I haven't gone to Ciclismo Classico, which is a great company. I've gone. I went to Puglia because it was the flattest region of Italy.
It's like a focaccia. Yes, it's like focaccia flat.
Yeah.
They're little rollers, but they're very
tiny. Right. So where do you love to go biking, especially?
So, well, I did a crazy trip this summer. I did two. I was in and around Lake Maggiore, Lake Orta. But this summer, in September, we started in Polignano a Mare. So this is a home of Domenico Mondino, the Volare guy. And we started there and we went across and we ended up in Calabria. So it's hilly. And so the first couple of days in Puglia were, flat. And then when we got into Basilicata, it was hilly, Calabria. So it was just incredible. But I've actually even done this trip I've done it twice. And what I love about it is every day the landscape is just so stunningly beautiful. But what I love about, really traveling by bike is, it's immersive. And so you're in a car, and there's like a windshield and there's a separation, and, you just really become part of the place when you're on the bike. And then the bike is really like the right speed. Okay. So car's too fast. Let's say you saw something, you don't slow down and say, gee, I want to go take that picture, but if you're on a bike and you see something like, oh, okay, I want to stop right here. And also you really you can see the grapes hanging on the vine, and there's like apples falling from the trees, and, in the northern provinces, or you can have find a fig. I mean, I had some of the most amazing figs on this trip in September. And so you're really close to you're really close to the land.
Yeah. That trip it was in May, and they're famous for their olive trees, but they have these cherry trees.
Oh,
I remember stopping. It was late May, June, so I remember stopping and just standing there, and I was watching a farmer harvesting. And this is what else happens: you get connected, and we started to talk. And before I knew it, I had a bike basket that was just full of cherries.
I know, and that's the thing. You connect and you become part of the culture because you have these experiences with people that you wouldn't have ordinarily. And you're really, you're a traveler, you're not a tourist. You become part of that. And it also, I mean, it's much more like part of like self-discovery, because you just, I don't know, I just find it, just incredibly, more enriching just to be close to the culture in that way. And
Italians really love it. I mean, you see people of all ages on bikes, which I love there, and in the towns. I was in Padova. We both love this town recently, and it's so much pedestrian only, but then you see, families on bikes, get in the back, and it's very, very bike friendly country, the whole country. And I love that you can do it easily. You don't have to take the whole week. It's great too, but you can just in any town, like in Rome. I don't ride my bike in the city, but up in the Borghese Gardens is very big and flat. And they rent bikes there, and you could ride your bike around there, and it's really great. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. It's just, I don't know. It's always been I mean, I've always bike was my favorite toy when I was little, making circles in the kitchen on a tricycle, but it just is it's a marvelous way to travel. I mean, I've done a lot of things by foot, and there's certain kinds of places that are better by foot, but cycling, again, you get to, it's the right speed, you cover good distance. And
I love that you eat that bowl of pasta, and you
earn your food, right?
You've earned your gelato, you've earned your pasta, you get, if any of us are concerned about weight, it doesn't, you get it done. And the food and having picnics, it just, like you say, I think Italy, even though there are in every city, in Rome and Naples, they're still so connected to the natural cycle of the seasons more than I would say we are here. I mean, everybody knows when artichokes are in season and outside.
Italians are in their senses. Do you know what I mean? They really know how to be in their senses. I mean, I think that's partly why they're very joyful people, and there's a lightness to them. I mean, it's I don't know, and it's just a very sensory culture. The sounds, and what happens is, to me, if I'm on my bike, I'm more attuned to my senses, the things I smell, the things I hear. Everything just is in higher relief.
Right.
Than when you're
right.
like in a car or
You
whatever.
know, I mean, the perfumo, as they say, of Italy. That's what hit me when I first
Oranges.
got there on this trip. Oh my gosh, if you are ever there, like in the spring when it rains and you walk into an orange grove,
Oh yeah, the oranges. I love that.
it's so great. And I was in Venice, and just it has a particular smell, aroma of the sea there that I think is so. It's Venetian, it comes in cold with the mist, and it's just,
Right.
oh,
Yeah.
it's just amazing. And of course, the smell of cafe and of ragu.
And
Italy smells really good.
it does. I know. And then I mean, I just like, I'm obsessed with Venice. And again, I like to take pictures. And no matter how many times I've been in Venice, I'll turn a corner and it'll take my breath away. There'll be just something that I'll see. And it's as if I'm seeing it for the first time because the light's different, the quality of the light is different. There's just something, and I'll look at it and it's almost like, again, I've seen it, and yet I haven't seen it. And then I just love, it astonishes me. I love it so much. I really do.
Really, I can tell. I can tell. I'm with a sister, sorella.
Yes.
Let's talk. We have time to talk a little bit about Christmas traditions in Italia. Which ones do you love the best?
Well, I love the story of Saint Nicholas because it's kind of an interesting little journey. I mean, a lot more twists and turns than, his annual circumnavigation. And so the story of Saint Nicholas is that, first of all, his remains are in Bari in Puglia, and his namesake cathedral, but he isn't Italian.
Was the celebration, right? December 6th. Yeah.
December 6th. So yesterday. Yeah. So what happened was that he was a Greek, and then they stole his bones. Okay, which was a big deal back then because people wanted relics because it conferred prestige and protections to locations. So the Barres really wanted his bones. And so they stole his bones. He's in the cathedral. But one of the reasons, I mean, he protects sailors, but he's also associated with children. Okay, and there's a story, and I'll just show you this quickly because everything you can see in art. So, okay, so whenever you see Saint Nicholas, he was a bishop. And bishops have this crozier, the staff, they wear a mitre. Okay, and he's always carrying these gold balls. Okay, and the story of Saint Nicholas was that there was a very poor family. The father didn't have enough money. He had 3 daughters. He was a widower. He couldn't pay for dowries for his daughters, and he was going to have to sell them into prostitution. And then, miracle of miracles, somehow each time a daughter comes of age, a gold ball or a gold bag of money appears. And the patron, the secret patron, of course, is Saint Nicholas. We don't find that out right away, but so these 3 balls. So this story of like saving the daughters became a really popular story. And saint stories were usually about the saint got roasted, the saint got flayed, the saint was beheaded, or he went out into the wilderness and like he fasted for like days. So nothing festive, but this is a happy story. So this story results in the beginnings of the practice of giving people, gifts. But actually, I just want to go back because this is cool. One of the versions of the story is that they hung their stockings out at night, and somehow the gold ended up in the stockings.
Right.
I don't know how.
And where are these images from? Are they? Can we see them in museums or?
Yes, and so this is actually in the cathedral in Bari.
Oh,
and so And so anyway,
Bari is the capital of the region of Puglia, which is on
Puglia.
the southeast coast of Italy, and it has a very Greek feel to it. I feel.
It does.
Yeah, and very white and flat beaches, and yeah.
Well, and there's all that, pottery from the period of Magna Graecia there. That's quite incredible. But anyway, so also one of these versions is he was throwing the gold down the chimney. So, you begin to see the elements of the Santa Claus story.
Right.
Which comes
and he was bishop like in 4th century. So
right. And his feast day was he was martyred on 343 AD or something.
Yeah,
so anyway, the candy cane comes from the bishop's crozier. And so his day, he got moved to the 25th because of Martin Luther and the Protestant Reformation, because he didn't like this celebrating saints. He was really like anti-saint. And so he wanted all the focus to be on Jesus, but everything got moved off to the 25th, St. Nicholas. And then you've heard like Kris Kringle, which is Christ the King, is conflated with Santa Claus. And then it all came to the New World. The night, the story of St. Nicholas, the night before Christmas, becomes a beautiful little poem that was published in a newspaper in Troy, New York in 1823. And there, St. Nicholas is a little elf, but he becomes big during the Depression because Coca-Cola adopts him as their spokesperson. There are all these ads, antique Coke ads, where Santa is the spokesperson. So he became big and jolly, from this guy in Bari who was just kind of a skinny-faced Greek.
Running around throwing gold balls around.
Right, yeah. But anyway, so I like the
first
Santa Claus.
Secret Santa. Yeah.
And then I want to just show one other thing. I had found this a while back. This was so the Chapel of the Magi was on the cover of Life magazine right after the war. And I just found this to be so interesting because here we had Italy had been an enemy, but there's always been these bonds between America and Italy. So first year after the end of the war, I mean, it just to me really speaks to the love between America and Italy and that, joyous spirit that is so Italian.
Yes, the joyous spirit that you have in your book. So now we have time for questions. If anyone has questions for either of us about the book and Italian travel, or my book, you're moderating. Take it away.
Susan, Carla, thank you so much. And please, audience, type any questions you have in the chat. But first off, I had a question for you. Let's get started with. Besides bicycling, here we are moving into the cold winter and the far north. What kind of trips should we start imagining for ourselves and daydreaming about? Besides, where do you recommend that we go? What are some off the beaten paths places or some ways to get around Italy that you can suggest for armchair travelers as we think about the future?
I was just curious. So, are you? I would suggest Sardinia as a place where it's a little different. They have very much. You have Spanish influence there. The food is really interesting. The beaches are amazing. Do you love it, Susan? I love it.
It is. I mean, all the regions are so different. Sardinia, I love. They make a special pasta that's so good. It rings and really thin, great bread.
I love what is it called? The carta musica.
Right.
I just love that.
Right.
It's just so. It's so amazing.
A lot of shepherd action with good ricotta and really good lamb. And
they
wines are wonderful.
pig roasting, and the
Right.
wines, the Vermentino, and they have this red
Chocolate.
wine. Have you ever had the Cannonau?
Yes,
Which
right.
it's
Great.
really great. So they have
Yeah.
Cannonau, and it has 7 times the resveratrol of ordinary red wine. So that's the antioxidant, the heart healthy antioxidant. And then they have this cluster, a blue zone, where they live in excess of 100 years. There's this cluster of centenarians that are living in Sardinia. So they're drinking that
healthy.
like
And yeah,
Cannonau.
right. And it has some of the most beautiful beaches in the world. I mean, and
Yes.
some of them have this unusual feature of like almost rose-colored sand because of the coral action.
Yeah, and then the flamingos
Right,
near Oristano. So this
right,
is on the kind of western, like middle to
Right.
south.
right,
and-
right. And it's
and
a
then-
flight, you know, you would probably fly into Rome and then fly into one of its cities. And but it definitely would be fun to explore. I mean, I love Italian islands are just so wonderful. And actually, in the you know when the COVID restrictions were lifted, places like Capri that are off the Bay of Naples and Ischia, they became like COVID-free zones because they could really control who comes in
Right.
and out. And the
Ischia is amazing, isn't it? Oh my God.
Ischia is an amazing unsung folksy neighbor of Capri, as we call it, because it also is home to like 300 thermal springs
Thanks.
establishments. It used to be a volcanic island, and so it's just full of this nurturing water that's funneled into these pools, and you could lay out either in a fancy spa or they have free spas and look at the beautiful horizon and enjoy fantastic fish. Of course, they do
Oh,
pizza
yeah.
like the Napolitan. So it's only about an hour's ferry ride away from Naples.
From
Do
Naples.
it as a day trip from Naples or stay a while, which is great.
Well, you can also like channel Elena Ferrante
Right.
and go there, yeah. Because I think are people going there more, do you think, because of the novels?
Maybe. I think it's becoming more well known. I mean, it was very popular. It had its Dolce Vita phase in the 50s and the
Right.
60s, and then it kind of fell off. So now I think it's there's a lot of work being done for its resurgence because it has history, spas, beautiful places to stay, and it's not that expensive, which is yeah, everybody.
Yeah. I also, one other thing I just want to add, like this is the first time I've been there this year,
Uh-huh.
which was in Vicenza, which I
Oh.
loved, in Veneto, where this is where Palladio, like our Palladium windows, all of the architecture that you see in Washington, D.C., I had just always like missed it.
So this is moving way up to the Veneto region. It's a train ride from Venice, an hour and a half or so.
Right, and it's a half an hour from Verona. It's really, it's like 20 minutes from Padua. And it's just really wonderful. It's a university town. There's an amazing, Renaissance architecture, and then there are all these villas to visit. It's wonderful, and I think it just gets bypassed. And there's an incredible theater, Teatro Olimpico, where he wanted to recreate an open air Roman theater, and it looks like Arles. It's actually patterned after the Roman cathedral in Arles, but it's like really trippy because like the ceiling, you're inside, and it's like this, trompe l'oeil like sky, and it's as if you're, sitting in an open air theater. I just love that place.
The town is beautiful. They have a big jewelry tradition there.
Oh, they do the jewelry. I know.
It's yes, it's beautiful. And yes, you could do a whole tour of this Andrea Palladio, who was an architect of the 1600s who Thomas Jefferson loved and copied his plans for Monticello. I mean, all of our stately architecture
Picture. The
is
capital,
was
the
born from Palladio. And when you go there, you see, which of course it was Renaissance. So he went back to the Greeks and Romans, its columns and proportions, harmony. Anywhere.
And I mean, there's like 26 or something like 23 buildings of his alone in the town of Vicenza. And then he kind of invented the summer house, these, the villa, the wealthy Venetians would have their kind of summer houses away from Venice, done in this Palladian style. So, and there's like 26 of these villas. It's just great. I've just loved it. And like I said, I've taken many trips and it was really an eye opener for me.
There's always something new.
Yeah.
More questions?
Yeah, I got one just now that was DM'd. I feel like you've written my entire itinerary for this hypothetical vacation here.
Up, down, fly.
But I got DM'd one from a customer, a direct message, asking Susan if you could talk a little bit about your book, 100 Places in Italy Everywhere One Should Go.
Well, here's my book. Yes, this is the 10th anniversary edition. We share the same publisher, Carla and I, Traveler's Tales, which is wonderful, independent publisher, independent bookstore. They publish travel essays. And so this book came out of 100 Places in Italy Every Woman Should Go, of me traveling to Italy, first going because my maternal line was Italian, and then discovering how much women really love Italy. I mean, men too, but maybe it's because Venus and the Madonna rule there. And, it's so much more, we feel very appreciated in Italy. Women of all ages, women of all shapes and sizes, celebrated live and in art. And so I write about places where women have been worshipped, the Madonna, Venus's temples, goddesses' temples, saints' churches. And then it goes on to specific things like, I mean, men like shopping too, but a lot of great artisan places to go, spa towns, which there are many in Italy because it's so volcanic, places to go for things to eat, historical places where women flourish, such as Peggy Guggenheim's museum in Carla's favorite place of Venice, or in the town of Mantua, where Isabel d'Este, the queen of the Renaissance, has her little studiola. So I'm so happy that it's been enjoyed by so many, and places that Carla pointed out, like the
I love
Africa.
Susan's book. I love Susan's book.
We're sisters in
We are sisters.
Yeah. Thank you for asking. They make great Christmas gifts.
They do. Susan, Carla, I'm afraid we're just about out of time. Thank you both so much. This has been just a delight to be thinking about the warm South while we're moving into the winter. We appreciate it so much, and we'll see everyone at another Northshire Presents virtual event soon. We've got the links for both their books available in the chat. You can order them at northshire.com. Have a great evening, everyone.
Ciao, ciao.
Grazie mille.
Grazie mille.
Ciao.
Bye, Susan. Bye. I love you.
Bye.
Bye.